The Evolution of the Video Game. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the very first Hong Kong Gaming Convention. It's my great honor to be the first guest speaker at this convention. Firstly, I'm going to talk about game consoles. Secondly, we'll look at the people who use them. Lastly, I'll be discussing the opportunities for targeting female gamers in the industry. I'd like to start by talking about game consoles of the past. These days, we take small, lightweight game consoles for granted. Yet they weren't always like this. For those of you old enough to remember the very first game consoles, you'll recall that they were large, chunky, and painfully slow. If you look at this timeline, you'll see that the original console was released in 1972. By 1975, more consoles had been released, and the tennis game Pong was put on sale. Although Pong had originally been a popular coin-operated arcade game, it proved a smash hit as a home console and launched the trend for future home game consoles. Of course, we used to think these games were fantastic back in the 1970s, but if you were to take a look at the games we used to play back then, you'd probably laugh. The graphics were so bad, and the games were so slow. I remember I had an old Atari game console. I'd got it for Christmas, and it had come with a couple of games in cartridges. You just slotted them into the console. A friend of mine used his computer to play basic video games. Do you know how he had to load games onto his machine? Using old cassette tapes. It's hard to imagine it now. I remember one afternoon we had been waiting for 30 minutes for a game to load, and then it crashed. I suppose we were used to it, so we didn't get too annoyed. So why did we play these games when the quality was so poor and the games were so basic? Well, it's simple really, because they were fun, and back then these games were considered high-tech. Let's now look at people who use game consoles. Playing video games has always been a popular hobby for boys, ever since the gaming trend first began. Even now, think of a stereotypical gamer, and you'll probably think of a teenage boy sat in his bedroom, engrossed in the latest war game, where the aim is to destroy the enemy. Big hits with boys in recent years have been Halo, Tomb Raider, and Grand Theft Auto, all high-action games. However, while it's true that the majority of gamers are boys, the landscape is beginning to shift. Take a look at this chart. Today, it is estimated that women account for up to 1/3 of console game players. Game developers are aware of this trend and are keen on tapping into this potentially lucrative market. However, research has shown that girls often become bored with the ultra-violent video games targeted at boys, finding them too repetitive. Girls tend to be more interested in games that are more personalized, such as those which involve using your imagination and establishing relationships with the game's characters. As Pamela Haag from the AAUW commented, the female market wants high skill, not high kill. In an attempt to appeal to female gamers, some game console designers are even planning on launching a pink-colored range of consoles and games set in clothes shops or beauty salons. I know very well from my own daughter, though, that not all girls like pink and are obsessed with fashion. It seems that getting young women to play video games is not the difficult part. Keeping them interested in video games is the real challenge. Electronic Arts, a gaming company, has discovered that last year 40% of teenage girls played video games but had lost interest within the year. Recently, I spoke to Lucy Wong, a 15-year-old from Ho Man Tin. She used to play video games all the time when she was younger. I asked her why she had stopped playing them. I'd like you to watch this video clip of what she said. Start video clip.
When I was 12 or 13, I loved video games. I used to play them with my younger brother all the time in his room. But in the last year or so, I've got a bit tired of them. I can spend hours playing video games, and when I stop, I haven't achieved anything. Well, not in the real world anyway. I remember one day I'd been playing for 6 hours straight. I was so exhausted I could hardly keep my eyes open.
End video clip. So, finally, how can we get female users more interested in games? As an industry, if we want to appeal to the female audience, we really need to think about games that involve communication and community building. For example, how many of you have played The Sims or Second Life? In these types of games, you don't have to fight anyone or race a car, the traditional content of male games. Instead, you can create a virtual version of yourself, an avatar, and live in a fantasy world. You can make new virtual friends, live in a virtual house, and do a different kind of virtual job. I even heard of one woman who met her future husband in Second Life. They had married in the virtual world before they even met in real life. Eventually, they did meet face to face, and the last I heard, they're still married. It's a long way from the game of Pong I used to play as a boy. I wonder if the creators of those first game consoles had ever imagined that technology would bring us this far. I'm glad to say there's one thing that hasn't changed. Video games are still fun. Thanks for listening. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.